Know when it's ready.
Hurry up and wait, right?
Yep.
Good evening. This is a work session for the Molalla City Council for Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. We'll start with roll call, beginning with Councilor Gilmer.
Councilor Gummer, present.
Counselor Schenkel present.
Counselor Childers present.
Mayor Kaiser present.
Councilor Bartholomew present.
Councilor Basinius present.
Dan Huff, City Manager, present.
City Recorder Christy Teets present.
Steve Donovan, Consultant.
Matt Corthell, Assistant City Manager, present.
All right. Please note that if a councilor wishes to discuss a major policy issue that is not on the agenda, it should be raised during new business for consideration at a future work session or meeting, not during the current meeting. Decisions cannot be voted on during work session. Up tonight, discussion items tonight is our park system development charges presentation. Mr. Huff, take it away.
Yeah, Steve Donovan is here tonight. We talked about him a little bit at our last council meeting. Your ears were probably burning just a little bit, Steve. Steve has been around Molalla for at least 10 years now? 12?
1996.
Was that your first foray into Molalla?
Yeah.
So, he's here to talk to you about our Parks SDC tonight. And we kind of gave you a preview at our last meeting, so should be just really easy to follow.
And if I can, I'll take it away. Mayor, councilors, thank you. Of course, we're not asking for any action tonight. Tonight is for you to sit back and listen and take in ideas here. In your packets, there's a draft report. And because we're we're talking about SDCs, there's a statutory timeline. There's a clock ticking, and we'll get through that in a minute. So we'll walk through the PowerPoint, and then we'll circle back on that schedule. So first, the history and the background of the Parks SDCs. Second, we'll talk about the policy issues, and I'll probably look to Mac a little bit because he's got some pretty deep insight into specifically the policy issues of SDCs in Molalla. Talk about reimbursement and improvement fees. Those are the two components that make up the system development charge. And then we'll talk about the specifics. We'll talk numbers with you. And then we're going to have a chart that's going to show you where your current Parks SDC is for a single-family home, what we're proposing that fee to be relative to other neighboring communities. So it's sort of like, what's everybody else charging kind of thing. And then we'll loop back for you. So I apologize for the small there. We ought to pack a lot into this chart. Reading from left to right on the history. Your current Parks SDC methodology was first adopted, or last adopted, in 2014. And your population at that time was about 8,900. And that total Parks SDC master plan back at that time frame was $17.8 million. Fast forward to 2024, and your two new Parks master plan you adopted in February of 2025, and your population has grown to almost 10,500. Your total Parks Master Plan Capital Improvement Plan is $13.9 million. And you'll go, well, gosh, how could the capital plan go down? Well, I think it's because you got a better plan between you and me. The 2014 Master Plan was, Dan, aspirational,
Yes.
would you call it? And this
Yes.
one has got some, it's on a protein diet, the new one. Think of it that way. There's not a whole lot of fat in it, and I think it's good projects that can be built rather than these aspirational superstar projects like the 100,000-foot community center or the NFL-style training facilities that I typically see in other communities' master plans that, between you and me, they're never going to get built. So you should be happy and commend yourselves for a good plan that you've got. So now going to the far right, talk about the SDC methodology, and that's really what we're going to talk about tonight is a level of service basis for the calculation. That's kind of, under the law, you can't be arbitrary and capricious when it comes to calculating these fees. There has to be grounded in some methodology. And we're using a level of service, which is what was used to develop your master plan. So we're hand in glove. And now, when we talk about the reimbursement fee, this is the fee that new development pays to buy into built capacity. In other words, your existing system that has capacity remaining. And 6% of your existing book value of your park system has capacity remaining. Think of it that way. Whereas the improvement fee is got quite a bit more. It's almost 60% of your capital improvement plan SDC eligibility. So that's kind of the fulcrum we're talking about there. Now I'm going to talk about, really what is the policy around SDCs and who pays them. I know you folks are all aware of this. Mayor, you've gone round and round on this many times. But only new development pays these fees. And it's charged at the time of permit issuance and consists of 3 components: the reimbursement fee, the improvement fee, and a compliance fee. The compliance fee is typically very small, and in your case, the reimbursement fee will be small. The preponderance of the SDC that we're going to recommend to you will be part of the improvement fee, which is for planned future capacity, which came out of your master plan. Use of SDCs, they're restricted revenues under Oregon budget law. They can't be spent on operations and maintenance. They can only be spent on capacity expanding capital improvements. And this is the same that we've done with you with water and sewer, and we'll be doing with stormwater again here in the near future. And then finally, there's an annual reporting. And Matt, you want to take this last one on the policy issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Steve. Good evening, council. So we talked a little bit about this, about how what I call an honest plan, and we talked a little bit about striking a balance. And so that kind of explains some of the policies that you guys have set that results in that lower overall capital number that you saw, which also results in a lower SDC, but also something that's actually achievable and attainable. So you guys lowered your level of service from 10 acres per 1,000 people to 7 acres per 1,000 people based on best practices. So that was a policy decision that you guys made that helps reduce that SDC. The other thing we did is that when we looked at the capital plan in the parks master plan, is that we tried to look at a capital plan that's actually achievable and attainable. Not the pie in the sky that we talked about, but actually doing things that we thought we could actually get done and could actually build, so that it doesn't artificially inflate your SDC. Because if you put giant, we put, hey, we're gonna build the Rose Garden out here at Clark Park, that bumps the SDC up and brings a lot of money in, but in reality, it's just, it's not real. It's what I call almost dishonest. And so we looked and tried to take an honest approach when you guys put together your Parks Master Plan, capital plan, on what could actually be accomplished. The other thing that's done some things that is kind of outside of this is that you guys did adopt a parkland dedication ordinance to go into your development code. So that mitigates some of the costs that we see for parks too, which is that land value through some of the development. So at the end of the day, that's kind of the things that all came together to make this a more attainable plan with a number that's legitimate and not something that's artificially inflated. And then we talked a lot about striking a balance, so I won't beat that up anymore. I think you guys heard plenty about that last meeting, about how it's basically either way you go. If it's too high, it's unfair to the populace. If it's too low, it's unfair to the populace. So it's up to you guys to try and strike that balance, and I think you guys have done a really good job with that. And I think Steve agrees based on his vast experience in seeing these plans and how they can be artificially inflated, and looking at ours and seeing that it's actually tight and something that we think we can come close to achieving, if not achieve. So, does that kind of
That'll do it. That'll do it. And let's keep moving along here, because I know you got plenty to do. Want to talk about just the nuts and the bolts now. On the reimbursement fee, well, where on earth does this come from? Well, it comes from your balance sheet. Remember, you're a business. You run a business, and you've got a balance sheet. So we look at the book value of the park system. That's original cost less accumulated depreciation equals book value. It's the classic accounting treatment. And in the city's case, you've only got $4.48 million of book value of parks. The preponderance of your park investments is in land. But you still don't have a whole lot of investment there because a lot of this was dedicated over time. Out of that, we did an analysis to determine there's only $283,000 of SDC eligibility out of that 4.48 million. That's the 6% I talked about. So that's where that comes from. So as you can see, that pie chart below the reimbursement box there, the preponderance of your park system consists of land. A fair amount of it that's undeveloped and unimproved land. So this fits really well with your master plan that said, gosh darn it, we're not going to go buy and acquire more land that we can't have any money to improve it to turn it into good parks. You're going to take the land that you've got and you're going to invest in it to build better parks and get better bang for the buck on the parklands that you got. And that's a really good idea. Because I can't tell you how many cities I go to and they got their plan to acquire more land and they can't even fix the parks that they've got or have the parks at a level of service that patrons can use it. You know, the restrooms don't work, the swing sets are broken, but they want to go buy more land. I think that's a false echo and a bad thing to do, and you're not doing that. So on the improvement fee, your total parks capital improvement plan in the master plan is $13.9 million. 8.2 million of that is SDC eligible. Remember that 59% I talked about? That's where this ratio comes from. And if you look at the pie chart below, you'll notice, once again, is just I'm reinforcing, most of the investments that we're talking about in the future that are SDC eligible are going to go into improving the parklands that you've got. And this is a good idea. And it's going to fit well with your future. So, what's the answer? The answer is we're proposing and suggesting that you raise your current parks SDC from $2,643 per single family home up to $6,861 for a net increase of $4,218. Now here is the chart that I wanted to show you, and it shows right now your Parks SDC is the lowest among your peer communities that we chart. And we've been using these communities for at least 10 years, Dan, when we've done the water rates, the sewer rates, and we've done the SDCs over the last 10 years in cycles. Even with this increase, you're still on the lower end of the range of your peer communities. And I'm with Mac here is, it's a basic fairness here now. Because remember, the people that are buying these homes that are going to pay these SDCs are our kids and our grandkids. And we've got to keep that in mind. But we also have to know, on the balancing standpoint, that the costs to improve these parks don't go away. And we've got to capture growth's share of the cost of providing these facilities. So now let's talk about schedule. And once again, this is a statutory schedule that we're following. And on January 30th, we started the 90-day clock, as it were. And under statute, 90 days prior to issuance of a resolution or statute to adopt an SDC methodology, you have to notify people on your list. Cities are supposed to keep a list of this. MAC has done that. We've distributed it. MAC has notified people in writing of interested parties. On March 11th, today, we're doing a work session with you, which is not mandatory, but I think is just good business, to inform you of what we're proposing and what we think we want you to consider. On March 13th, we're going to post to the website the report that you saw in your packets tonight for public inspection. And that'll be 60 days prior to adoption by resolution or ordinance by the council. And then on May 13th, we're going to ask you to consider adopting these SDCs by resolution. So that is it, folks. Thank you.
Can I add just one thing? If you go back to the chart where Steve was, the one more Steve. This chart here was one of the things that I anyway, talked about at your last meeting where Mac was providing all that good information on how SDCs work. But this chart here is what, there's one number that's missing, and that was back in 2019 when the park fee was about $7,800 per EDU. And then you arbitrarily dropped it down to 2,500 with good reason. You were trying to level the playing field for the wastewater treatment plant. So the fee that we're proposing, that Steve's calculation proposes there, is actually $1,000 below that
Than what it was.
from, 7 years ago. And that's
Right.
kind of unheard of. in
Well, and
reality.
also I gotta come in, remember we talked about the 2014 methodology and that you had a $17.8 million capital improvement plan
Right.
that we said was aspirational? Well, that SDC, the 7,800 back then, was based upon that
Based on that.
aspirational capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
And I'll just add a little more. It was also based on 2014 dollars. And we all know what inflation has done to the value of a dollar since then. So you're really, it's $1,000 lower than it was in 2014, but in reality, it's substantially lower than that.
Yeah. But I think you've tightened your belts with respect to your new master plan. You've got a lean plan that can get built. And that just makes me feel better, because I can't tell you how many plans I see, particularly in parks, with projects we're collecting SDCs on that will never, ever get built or funded. And it just breaks my heart, because I see builders come in here and they're getting screwed on those kind of projects. We're just being disingenuous to them.
So it was 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. It was all about 7,000 something. Is that right?
78.
78,000.
Right.
So for that many years, we had it that high?
Mm-hmm.
Probably, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
At that time, the service level was also at 10, and we have since dropped it to 7, right?
Good point.
Yeah.
So
Excellent point.
we've reduced what we're offering, so that does negate some of that savings, although to Mac's point, the dollar isn't going as far. I mean, we all see it every day. But I
Right.
do want to point out, we often hear, we want more from our parks, we want more of this, more of that. So we have to be mindful that the service level is also dropping, and we're asking them to increase again, so it's something we know we're gonna hear.
Well, once again, I'm going to be a monkey with you here. Your current service level that you're experiencing now is right at that 7-ish level. The 10 is we come from our parks industry standards from across the country that says communities of your size generally have a level of service of about 10. Well, they're not you. You are you, and you're currently experiencing around 8, 7 and something's 8. So I don't think you're necessarily being disenfranchised or being cheated at a level of service. You're maintaining the level of service you've got, and with growth, you're going to have better parks, and you can still serve that future population. So I don't think that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater here.
Yeah, and I think to add, in addition to that, I think since about 2018, 2019, about the time we lowered the SDC, that what really wasn't, the lowering of the fee really didn't have anything to do with parks. It really had to do with the overall cost of all of our SDCs together.
Right.
Because we wanted to move that wastewater SDC to the highest point we could get it.
Right.
We have made more park improvements
Yeah.
in this time frame that we're talking about from 2019 to today than I think the city has in its entire existence.
I totally agree with that.
And so I don't know that, I don't want to say I disagree with you, but you have the right to think that. I think we have raised the level of service in this community over the last 6 or 7 years to a point that we've never been at before with our park improvements.
And I guess I was just making a point, just thinking about what questions we will potentially field, and that's where that's coming from. I'm not necessarily saying that's my opinion on the matter. I just know that we will hear that from people in the community. When we're looking at that last chart that shows the cities in the market that you're referencing, does that also, I mean, are they at a similar service level? Is that come into that at all?
They're all over the place.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so this is another thing is what does everybody else charge, and we got to, just plot on the screen, but
Right.
that doesn't have any bearing on what our costs are or how we deliver service.
Right.
This is what we charge for our services, and they're different.
I could also say that chart where it shows all the cities may not be or is soon to be not accurate, because I know a city just to the northwest of us, they're raising their parks SDCs, and from what it sounded, wasn't able to see the numbers. It was close to the top of the spectrum, like completely at the top of the spectrum. So these numbers do change per council meeting when people are updating it. So
You bet.
that city has a lot more parks, a lot bigger parks, and it's the way the city was designed. That's the way it came up, and that's what it's got. We have the parks we have, and in what, 5-6 years, we've added 2 parks and completely rebuilt or brought in brand new play structure equipment. I think in like all the kids' equipment, I think all of it has been replaced in 6 years, which is absolutely unheard of in a city.
Yeah. I've lived here for a very, 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 very long time, for 55 years or more. And so from when, like Dana said, and so has he, in the last few years, the improvements on our parks and more parks compared to what we had back in the day are like this, I mean, it is so different. And so when people, if they say something to you, remind them that, a few years ago, we didn't even have this park. We didn't have a water park up at the library area, and we didn't have Strawberry Park, and we didn't have the Chief Field. I mean, we have Clark Park even, we have so much more than we ever had in the past. I mean, my kids missed out. My grandkids, fortunately, are taking advantage of it all, but you've just got to remind people, and it's not going to affect the people who already live here and have their homes. This is new people coming in. So I don't think our level of service is less at all.
I remember the barrel inside the slide
Yes,
at
yeah.
Fox Park, because the slide was so dangerous for kids to slide down. Sir?
I just want to add, and I think it's more of an explanation than anything, because you're absolutely correct that the level of service dropped from 10 acres per 1,000 people to 7 acres per 1,000 people. So that was a policy decision that was made when the Parks Plan was adopted. So we're past that point here. But I want to talk a little bit about how your guys' policies interplay because level of service makes it sound like, hey, we're going to just have a bunch of dilapidated parks and junky
Right.
stuff. The reality is, by dropping from 10 to 7, that's the term of art level of service, you actually increased the value of each individual park or what we're able to do with it, right? So less parkland means that we're able to do more with the parks we've got. The other thing is that by adopting that policy for the developer dedications, that land will come as time elapses, and then when you reset your SDC, when you do a new parks master plan, then it's time to plan for that new ground, right? And the other thing that we have to be cognizant of is maintenance. One of the reasons behind lowering that level of service to 7 is because we have seen that, that there's been a lowering of that service level kind of throughout, but really it has also a lot to do with what we're able to maintain. So we're able to, by lowering that level of service, you're able to put all that money into those parks like Steve was saying, but also we have to maintain them on the back end, and this doesn't touch that.
Right.
That comes out of your general fund 100%. And so we had talked to you guys a little bit early on about the struggles and how, hey, we're probably not going to be able to be looking at building many new parks under the current system, because we're kind of tapped out on what we can maintain. So I think the the idea behind the policy was to have really good parks, and as many as we could maintain and keep them good. So that was kind of the premise behind it, and I don't think you were privy to that, so I wanted to share that with you, because
Yeah.
it's a good explanation
Yeah.
for people as well when you're talking to them. It's, hey, we could, invest $1 into all of this, or we could invest $1 right here where it makes a bigger impact.
Because I wasn't privy to some of this, that's why I'm asking some of the questions.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it also has the conversation. It makes it a lot easier
Yeah.
to talk with people and understand when
Yeah.
I have a fuller picture. I mean, I don't disagree with any of the points, whatsoever, but I just want to make sure that I have a clearer understanding, having not been privy to the previous.
Yeah, yeah, and level of service, I think, doesn't do justice to what really it is. Really, what we did is we lowered the amount of parkland per person. The level of service in the parks has increased, and will continue to increase with some of the projects we're doing now. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because it's kind of a term of art, and it makes it sound like, hey, we're gonna lower, the value of your parks. It's like,
Right.
no, we're gonna bring up the value of your existing parks. We're just not gonna add a whole bunch more that we can't maintain and don't have money to build. We're gonna add a little bit more and then build that, and then a little bit more and then build that.
And one of the other things, if you look at some of these cities, they're on this list here, quite a few of those cities on that list have parks that they're just open space. It's parkland that has just a path running through it. And in some cases, people aren't using them because they've become unsafe for folks. And we don't have those kind of areas. We have one, that we're on all the time in the southeast part of town, but it's not quite as much as what those other. So some of them, they're just adding open space and passive parkland, but it's not active. And actually, one of the things that we've thought about in this town as well, and it's built into the plan, and I give Matt credit, because he and I talked a lot about him having conversations with the consultants about paring things down. It's like, no, we don't want those.
That is an extremely difficult thing to do,
And it's
because
very
you
hard.
typically got a group of people that are your Parks Advisory Board or Parks Advisory Group who are really big parks advocates, and they want more parks, bigger parks. And they're talking to the consultants who drink the Kool-Aid. So you've got this feed loop of advocates talking to advocates, and it becomes this massive balloon of a thing without anybody saying, can we pay for it?
Yeah, and so that was
Or
part.
maintain it.
Or maintain it.
That was part of the art, and I've been around long enough to know how these master plans first came out.
Yeah.
You remember when TSPs first came out
Yeah.
years ago, and they were just aspirational about everything, right? And
We were all going to be on a bus or a bike, and we're all going to get out of our cars.
yeah, and so I think I'm very happy that many of those master plans, at least for TSPs and parks anyway, those two, people are looking at them very differently than they used to. And probably when we do our TSP, we're going to have to do the same thing with that. Because it's like the bike path from Molalla to Canby. That's a good example of one. Very expensive. Very expensive. Probably doesn't need to be in anybody's plan, because it jacks up the cost.
Sure.
Yep, and then development is paying an SDC for a park or for a trail that'll probably never get built.
Well, I
Right.
remember
Right.
there's one in our TSP, it was something about carpooling, and it's like, carpooling's dead. And I think I brought it up to Mr. Fisher when he was here, and it was like, no, we have to leave that there. And I'm like, people do not work 9 to 5 anymore.
No, we don't.
People work, 10 to 6, and, you have so many different schedule options, and having carpooling, I mean, it's just, to me, it's a waste of money.
Folks, I know you're very busy, but typically what I like to do in these work sessions is start from the corner here and put you on the hook. What do you think about our presentation tonight?
I think it's a good
thought-out process. I don't think you just pulled a number in to just say, this is the number we want. You guys put some math to it. So I appreciate the study that you did. Makes sense to me.
Mhm. I agree with Doug. It looks good. I think we're being realistic about this and not, our wish list, it's our realistic wish.
And I agree with that. I do have one question, however. Last time that we looked at SDCs, when we lowered the rates down to 2,000 and something, we were looking at SDCs on the whole. We were looking at all of them, and we were playing a balancing act, and raised SDCs for the wastewater, et cetera. Are we doing that this time? Are we looking at all of our SDCs and
Alas,
just doing
no.
it piecemeal?
I'm a big advocate against that because your costs just simply aren't going away. And matter of fact, they're getting worse. And if we try to give away on one end and think you're going to get it on the, you'll just leave in money that won't be available for parks. Mayor, you talked about this, and I mean, you struggled with it because you want to have affordable housing. All of you want affordable housing.
Right.
But our SDCs have to be where they are because our costs aren't going away. And there's no other pot to get the money from.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, so we're just, this year, and I mean, we're just looking at parks right now.
Right.
Yep,
Okay.
each system we'll look at individually.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. Okay, yeah. Good presentation, however.
Exactly what everybody said. I was going to hit on. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it being put into layman's terms. Sometimes our ACM kind of goes to space on some of this stuff, and it was nice to get a feel for it last council meeting, and then you come in and put it at the level you put it at. So I like the approach of finally we're putting everything at its own level. It's just like sound and music. You set each level independently for it to be perfect. And I like this plan.
Good.
Very informative and very, very well presented.
I think I'm good. Having some context to some of it was certainly helpful. Like as I stated before, from not being here. Matt, great job teeing us up from last time. Since the
Thank
mayor
you.
took a shot, I'll take a compliment here. So.
Your level, back to
But
level.
thank you guys. It's very informative. I still was looking through some other stuff that I scanned through previously, but there's a lot more insight here that I want to familiarize myself with just for a better understanding. So.
And I'll say, you guys, as you guys already know, if you ever want to talk about this stuff, there really is an overall way that all of your policies and all the things you've adopted work together. It's not accidental. And so I can always sit down and it's hard to chat about that interplay here because it's complex and it's strategic and that sort of thing. So it's just confusing. So if you ever want to sit down and have a conversation about it, I can kind of tell you how all of this kind of fits together. I'd be happy to do that because there really is an overall strategy here that's aimed at balancing all of the interests that we can go into a little bit more in depth anytime. I think you guys know the general strategy, but we can go into it in depth anytime you'd like.
So what's going to happen? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, and believe it or not, I can have those conversations too.
Oh, really? So what's going to
know that
happen
stuff?
next is on
Oh, yeah.
Friday, the report will be posted to the city's website. So far, based on the outreach that we've done, the letters that Mac has sent out, we've had no comments back from anyone so far. We will be radio silent here through April, and then in May, we'll be, May 13th, we'll be forward at your city council meeting. It will be a action item that you will take testimony on, and you will vote by resolution for it.
Okay.
And that will be it. And it will be effective with your July 1st fiscal year. So it'll
Okay.
connect nicely with your budget cycle.
Perfect.
Perfect, yep.
All right.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation and coming tonight, sir.
You betcha. We'll see you next time.
All right. there anything else we'd like to discuss tonight?
No, sir, thank you.
Mr. Oath?
Nope.
All right. I will adjourn this meeting at 5:34.